Good evening. Oh my goodness, everyone. Tonight is super, super special on the show. Welcome to What's the 411, where we are talking cannabis news here and all things social and important in cannabis, things that we need to hit. Today, we are actually going to do things slightly different because we have a topic that pretty much needs its own show. And it's super important for what we're working to accomplish in cannabis. So, guys, stay tuned. This is going to be an amazing, amazing show. I am your host, Kit Grimes, CSO for Minorities for Medical Marijuana. If you are not already following our organization, make sure that you check us out at www.m4mmunited.org. I am also the owner and operator of The Edible Incredible, and we are a culinary brand teaching people all about cannabis and how to infuse it into your everyday eats and treats. So, without further ado, I really want to bring on this gentleman. First things first, I have to preface this. Like, he is a fireball when it comes to all things policy. Okay, we've got a couple of guests on today, and I'm going to introduce them up one at a time. But when I tell you, he gives policy a run for its money. He gives Capitol Hill a run for his money. And I just got noticed that my other guest is here, so that's super awesome as well. Like, when I tell you these gentlemen are dynamic, this is going to be a great conversation, guys. So without further ado, let me introduce my first guest. He is actually the vice president of strategy and business development for Banks and Company. He is also the national policy director for cannabis and hemp policy for our very own Minorities for Medical Marijuana. I proudly give you my brother from another mother, Mr. Eric Foster. Eric.
Hello, thank you, Kit. How are you all doing? And how's everybody doing today?
Man, like when I knew you were gonna be on here, I had to put my good hat on. Like I had to come ready, like put my little twirls in because I already knew you're gonna untwirl his hair by the time this is all over. So I'm just super excited to hear what you have to say about this topic and to like really bring it all together because this is a big thing. Rescheduling versus descheduling, guys. It's super big in the industry. If you don't know what that is, we're going to get into it in just a sec. But before we do that, I want to bring on my other guest. Let me tell you something. My little broski is kind of dope. Okay. He is the CEO and owner of Native Black Cultivation, which is a farm and cultivation project down in Alabama. He is, I mean, when I tell you he is making policy changes, and not only that, he is actually making it where other people have to look and see what he's doing and kind of follow along and really starting to push that curve. So I'm super, super excited to hear everything that's been going on in his neck of the woods. But further ado, I'm going to give you all my brother Antoine Mordecai. What's
Pleasure.
going on, brother?
What's going on there, family? What's going on there? Good to see you there, Eric.
Hey, Twan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, doing well. It's homecoming week, so it's about to be it's great.
I didn't get an invite to Alabama. I'm just saying. I know I go on my homecoming, but I can come to anybody's home and be comfortable.
Homecoming for who?
Alabama, you know.
Oh, okay, good.
You in Alabama.
Not the Sherman Tide Pods from down there in Tuscaloosa.
The roll Tide, right?
No, hell no. War Damn Eagle. War Damn Eagle.
War Eagle.
All about the Tigers.
Guys, thank you so much for being on. Y'all already know what the vibes are. We are actually going to be discussing rescheduling versus descheduling. This is a super big topic in cannabis right now because depending on what actually happens can determine where we are in cannabis and where we go, the trajectory of it all. So to give everybody an idea of, what the whole big hoopla behind rescheduling and descheduling is, I wanted to go ahead and give you all some information in regards. So currently, the understanding the legal impacts for rescheduling. So marijuana is currently listed as a Schedule I substance in the Controlled Substances Act, which is the CSA. And this scheduling means that the federal government concluded marijuana has no currently accepted medical use in any setting. All of us on this call knows that that is the farthest thing from the truth. Like, we know it's not true. We know of all the medical benefits. We've seen the medicinal properties and workings of it. So that's the reason why this whole rescheduling it to something else is just going to push us back, and we're trying to work against that. Let's see. This could change as the Biden administration evaluates marijuana's current legal status, potentially opening the door to rescheduling marijuana. But of course, again, guys, like, if you all are watching, if you all want to support and make sure you understand, like, this is a really, really big hot topic. And the bigger thing is with the difference in between rescheduling and descheduling, so that you all understand where the ramifications are coming from. Rescheduling marijuana would move the substance from Schedule 1 to a less restrictive schedule, right? So if marijuana is moved to Schedule 3, 4, or 5, it would no longer apply to, Internal Revenue Code 280E would no longer apply to marijuana businesses, resulting in a much lower effective tax rate for businesses across the industry. Rescheduling is not the only possible method for the federal government to amend the treatment of marijuana under the federal law. The Biden administration could also deschedule the plant, which is what we want. Remember, deschedule is the thing, removing marijuana from the CSA altogether. So for people who don't understand, when you're thinking about all of the different drugs and reactives that are out there, there are a lot of them, and they all fall under these different schedules. And a lot of you probably don't even know what these different schedules are. You probably hear about it on the news, CNN say, oh, this Schedule 1, you're not really tuned in. So to kind of give you guys a blanket overview of what that is, and I know you guys know, but this is for our general pop. Schedule 2 drugs have high potential for abuse, but unlike Schedule 1 substances, they have some medical accepted use in certain circumstances with strict guidelines. These substances must be prescribed by a health practitioner and may not be dispensed or distributed, for any other reason. Most prescriptions may not be refilled, and these types of drugs are the heavy hitters. These are fentanyl, Adderall, cocaine if used for an anesthetic use, methamphetamine, methadone, etc. So these are some of those harder ones that they have going out. And you would think, again, I told you cannabis is considered a Schedule 1, right? You would think that it wouldn't be that, and you have all of these other drugs here. But we're gonna definitely dive into all of that, because I want to give these guys the floor to kind of give it to us. So Schedule 3 is reserved substances with a moderate to low abuse potential, a currently accepted medical use, and a low potential for psychological dependence. Use of the Schedule 3 requires a prescription, may not be refilled, which may not be filled 6 months after its date or more than 5 times total unless renewed by a practitioner. These are your kind of drugs that are Tylenol with codeine, Suboxone, ketamine, and anabolic steroids, and anything else that would fall under that. As we get down, you can see how the lesser of the drugs and how they start to filter into the system. Schedule 4s, they do have an accepted medical use and a lower potential for abuse compared to Schedule 3. These are going to be your things like Xanax, Valium, lorazepam, and clonazepam. I always say that wrong, but I think I got it right. and number 5 is these substances. So Schedule 5, and which is the last schedule, which is just like your over-the-counter regular drugs. These have a low potential for abuse compared to Schedule 4, and consist primarily of prescriptions containing limited quantities of certain narcotics. This is going to be like your Robitussin AC, ezogabine. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, guys, but y'all can see it. Anticonvulsants and Epidiolex, which is a cannabidiol, which we're getting ready to pin into today. So understanding where cannabis falls on the schedule as a Schedule 1, and then you can see how, and guys, let's really peel into this, because How is fentanyl a Schedule II drug and it is literally taking everybody out? Somebody talk to me about this. I am hot.
So, you ready to
I'm,
jump in, kid?
you know, look, I was waiting for you at the door.
Okay. So, we have to understand that the whole rationale for the Substance Abuse Control, the Controlled Substance Act of 1970, was part of former president and former criminal in the White House, Richard M. Nixon's war on drugs. Now, as a part of the narrative of pro law and order, as well as cracking down on the things that were considered counterculture, anti war, liberal, and the like, when this act was passed, mind you, cannabis or marijuana had been demonized from the 1930s on through that point, but there wasn't this federal classification until 1970. And so that was passed in part to put tiers for various controlled substances that were classified as having the potential for some level of possible abusive property, but then having levels of medical need or medical application slash utility, as well as manageable in terms of side effects and the like, ergo your 5 schedules. So since that time, cannabis has been stuck, like if you watch The Flash, Supergirl in the Russian prison on the alternative Earth that Flash went to trying to save his mom. So ultimately, it's been stuck there since 1970. The other drugs that have been added in over time have different dynamics and classifications. They all have different backstories in terms of where they sit. If you're in the Schedule 5 narcotic, or I mean Schedule 5 substance, you basically are on parole. So you served your jail time, you're on either parole or probation, you're free, but you still have requirements and check-ins to work through. Now, you can have a cousin variation of that that is over the counter, in addition to the one that is behind the counter. So your cousin who you didn't drop the dime on when y'all got caught doing what y'all was doing, your cousin is free. That's your over the counter version of Robitussin. But your cousin that has the Schedule 5 properties and classification, that's the one that's still on probation after getting out of jail. That gives you a little bit of layman context of what we're dealing with and where we start off in this particular situation. So the whole conversation on trying to move marijuana out of the Russian prison and get it to freedom, either complete freedom or at least to a halfway house like Schedule 3 or to probation like Schedule 5, has picked up steam over the past 20 years. And it's been because of things starting with California in 1996 when they legalized medicinal marijuana for individual use. And the engine has continued to roll to where now the commercial cannabis industry is a $30 billion industry. It's bigger than the NFL. It's bigger than Major League Baseball. It's bigger than basketball, bigger than hockey. And if you're a Godfather 2 reference, when Hyman Roth told Michael Corleone, it's bigger than U.S. Steel. So that's where we are right now, and it's continuing to grow. So we're at this point of, can we release it from the Russian prison and figure out where it needs to go? But that is where it gets complicated.
And it's so crazy because even when you said that, right? You said it's bigger than football, like the NFL is bigger than, and what's so crazy behind that is so many people in those industries partake in the off season. They partake after they've had their drug test, because once they've been tested, that's like a known thing. Once you're tested, they don't test you again unless you have suspicion of drugs. So they'll actually all throughout the year, and they are still partaking. And then they all have, not all, but a lot of them, either when they leave the league or they have someone else working on it, they have their own cultivars. They're actually getting into the industry from, from music culture to sports culture. It's across the board. And you would think that with so many people from all of those, different walks of life and how they've had to go through, it would actually be pushing the agenda further to get it descheduled versus, just having all of these brands pop up and then still can't do anything with them to the extent that we would like to.
Well, that takes time. And Antoine, please jump in, because I don't want to occupy anything.
Wasn't it 1970? Like, good Jesus, how much time?
Look, I was born in 1972. It took till 2023 for me to have the knowledge that God has blessed me, and it'll take longer to add to that knowledge. And so I say all that to the point, this stuff takes time. Remember, those achievements in the athletic arena are just things that have happened over the past 5 years. So it's not like this was happening in the 2000s or the 1990s. You could get suspended from the league or damn near run out of the league, Ricky Williams, if you were using marijuana back in the day, and you were and you got tested for it. So
yeah, and I have to second that is going to take time, especially me here in Alabama, with us having an emerging market and everything here. I'm hoping to be able to take advantage of the current $30 billion industry that we have that's about to be thriving here in Alabama, and this new economic stimulation that's coming. But as well, it's going to take time, man. Since I've been here in the South, man, it's a slow turning ship. It's so many other barriers and walls we got to climb before we can really even get the mindset to even trigger that this plant can be used for so much more. We need to stop looking at it in a certain kind of light. So it's just a ton of work that still needs to be done. And then just the other battles that we got going on with, the legislative policies and stuff like that, and continue the advocacy for everything we're trying to make happen here in Alabama. It's just a very slow moving ship, but honestly, I think we got some traction. We got the current on our side that we can continue to push the pendulum, especially, as we get more into the education aspect of everything, with folks being more receptive to the opportunity, especially with now it's being rescheduled, which I still don't really recognize the perks that it may have for, myself on the business side of it, because I still don't feel like it's giving the people access to the plant. But it's a starting point, and it's moving, but we need to go at least get it on probation, or we need to go ahead and get Cuz about the joint.
Kit, and I know you're going to jump in. I want to make one point, though. Now, here comes the real question. Does cannabis have medical benefit? And I'll come back to that, Kit, after you make your comment.
So actually, my comment was going to be more of a question. So and this is just kind of to tie it back to, native son, right? I said it right? No. Mm-hmm. Did I say it right? Yeah. Okay. Right? Okay.
Well, you talking about native black cultivation?
Yes. Yeah. So native black. I know I was like, that's not right. I know I'm close. So
you reading Richard Wright, ain't you?
I'm over here. I'm reading.
That's a good book.
Well, let me ask you this. So, in the grand scheme of things, because we know, and for people who don't know, this young man has been working on getting his license in the proper way for a good minute. They've had to take it back and forth. And I mean, they literally playing double dutch, like going back and forth between the tables and trying to make sure that the right people get the proper licensing and that they're not monopolized by, the conglomerates. What does rescheduling versus descheduling mean for native black cultivation? What does that, especially in Alabama, like what would the ramifications be if it was descheduled? I mean, if it was rescheduled versus descheduled?
Well, reschedule, I think we still gonna be in kind of the same position that we in now as they kind of roll out the medical program out here with Alabama being so strict. I think we'll still be able to ride our wave. It may not have the greatest amount of impact because now you know how we're looking at it. They still looking at it from a pharmaceutical and medical standpoint of it, which that's what the medical program is for, to be able to help those patients that are in need of the necessary medicine. But now getting it descheduled, you know, that can really open up the gates to allow for a lot of economics and wealth to be, you know, kind of created, because now it allows for you to do different things with the plan versus the restrictions that we have on it now, which we can't do anything with it here in Alabama besides hemp. But anything with that over 0.3 THC here in Alabama, you know, it's illegal. You're caught with it, you're going to jail, you're doing years. So
they don't even, okay, so wait, that's a good point. So you said that 0.3, like, so they're not even, it hasn't been decriminalized in Alabama, is what you're saying?
Nope, we had a bill, and we had a bill that didn't ever made it out the committee in the last legislative process. So hopefully we can be able to get that decriminalization going again and ultimately get it, you know, decriminalized out here. Because as of right now, it's no true protection.
Okay, Antoine. Now you got to remember that bill wasn't decriminalization. The legislature who wrote it didn't read the bill that they wrote. Because remember, all that bill was moving certain aspects of the criminalization from felony to misdemeanor.
Yeah,
that tells you that not every person that's elected needs to be elected, because some have reading deficiencies. I'm just saying.
Hey, we're going to the next election. Yeah, that's what I'm pushing for. We had 500,000 black folks here in Alabama that didn't vote in the last election. We got to get them activated and have them stop voting for people that's against their cause, that's against their purpose.
You got that right. You got that right. So here's the thing, though, and here's where the rub comes in. So now, I'm not a cannabis user. I did my 2 puffs when I was 21 on my 21st birthday. That was the objective as part of my 21st birthday.
You're so aggravated. I love it.
List. But I have seen the benefit. I've seen people that have benefited from it. And I've read studies in states where they're doing clinical-based studies, like some in California, like Pennsylvania, which is really kicking great butt in terms of research, Connecticut, and others. Do we all agree here that cannabis has medical benefit and that it can treat health ailments?
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's where the problem comes in with the question of deschedule versus reschedule. So if you prove, so I want to take you all on a little bit of a trip. And that trip is going to start with 21 USC 811, authority and criteria for the classification of substances. The reason why I'm going to take you all on that trip is because in the steps that are outlined per that law, and that law was a part of the original CSA of 1970. It's been amended, I think 20 times since then. But in that particular section, it details the steps to move the process and the difference between cannabis being considered. First, the AG has to start the process. So we got past that hurdle. Then next, we have to have the FDA through the Department of Health and Human Services to say that it finds that it meets the criteria of having medical benefit. Now, it's never gotten past that point. The most recent scheduling reviews were 2011 and 2016. The 2011 rescheduling review took 5 years. The 2016 took almost 4 years. In both cases, it got stopped at the FDA, HHS. This time we got past that. The next step is the DEA, but here's the rub. When you prove that cannabis has medical benefit, that it does have properties that can treat health ailments, that the abusive properties are not at the levels where it is what would be classified as a Schedule 1 or even a Schedule 2, and the dependency is manageable. Now comes the question. can you, through the administrative process, through that particular statutory provision in the law, actually do a deschedule through administrative process, or would it have to be done through statutory act through Congress? And the second question is, would you actually, now that you've proven that it's medicine, not alcohol, trust me, when I was in my 20s, before I was treated for my manic depression with bipolar tendencies, I drank a lot of alcohol trying to deal with that. Alcohol is not a medicine. That stuff didn't work. Just FYI, PSA for everybody out there. Alcohol doesn't treat depression. That's my statement on that. So alcohol has no medical benefit. Tobacco has no medical benefit. Those are descheduled. If cannabis has medical benefit, and I believe that as a non-user, we're going to be in the world of rescheduling.
I was actually, you know what, and I'm so glad that you said that, Eric, because when you said, before you even mentioned alcohol, I had literally written down like alcohol prohibition, because my next question was going to be, so are we shooting, and this is a big question, are we shooting ourselves in the foot by claiming the medical properties versus having cannabis no different than alcohol, no different than, tobacco, where you have your Surgeon General warnings about however they feel about it, where it can cause XYZ, but it's still made a personal choice.
Antoine, I'll let you go first, and then I'll give my feedback.
Yeah, as you start to walk through that, I was thinking like, how can we get cannabis more in the space of with nicotine? Because now that you're speaking about cannabis having the medical benefits, it's going to have to remain on the schedule unless we prove that that it don't. But at this point, we already know that it has medical benefits. So in the sense, I can understand now why it has to stay on the schedule, but he's getting it down to possibly the lowest of the schedule. But at the same time, are we not able to get it in the family of nicotine, that it can have the general warning, that it can be more of a personal choice, just like alcohol is, in a lot of those aspects? It's a double-edged sword, and just we got to figure out which way we want to swing this thing.
So here's my thought process on it. Like I say, being a non-user, having done my bucket list at 21, once you have proven and demonstrate that it has medical benefit, and I do believe that this can be beneficial for a myriad of health ailments that affect not just people in general, but one of the things that we've pushed for from a policy vantage point on behalf of M4MM at the federal level, at the state level, and that I personally have done in writing a bill for a Michigan Medical Marijuana Research Act to go way beyond what we have currently on the books, is because I believe it can also help treat health ailments of communities of color. I think it can specifically, with continued research, demonstrate that it has health benefits for treating ailments that affect us as African Americans, that affect Indigenous Native Americans, that affect Asian Americans, Arab Americans, Chaldean Americans, Iranian, Turkish, multiracial, all of the groups that have different health, even Jewish community, all of the different groups that are minority groups that have health ailments that are germane and specific to them. Do you want that in, or do you want to even try to put that in a lane of alcohol and tobacco? To me, and like I say, this is where I know I differ in the space within our M4MM community. As our representative on the Marijuana Justice Coalition, I differ from a lot of our colleagues on the MJC. I think that this makes sense for it to be in the rescheduled position because it is medical and it does have medical benefit. Don't walk away from what you are. Don't walk away from who you are. Once you know who you are, you got to roll with that. I had to learn at 18, I wasn't going to be a basketball player. My jump shot left when I was 17. By the way, everybody out here on all of the social media channels, If you see Eric Foster's jump shot out in the street, please tell it to come home. It's been over 30 years, and damn, it's just a long time out there in these streets. I'd like to have it come back. But I say that to say, once you realize, guys, what you are, you have to roll with that. That's what cannabis is. Cannabis can be a game changer on health. It's not alcohol. It ain't a cigarette. That's my view on it. Now tell me if I'm wrong, guys.
Nah, you 100% right, and I gotta ride with you on that, because as you start to break it down about the comparison, I can totally see why it has to stay there. There's no other way to go about it. Like, yeah, we can use the plant, the other properties of the plants for other things, but overall, it has this medical use.
You know what? That's such a thin straddle, right? Because and you know why it is, and again, this goes back to the time thing, right? Because for me, it's like I think about it on the one end, and I'm like, if y'all don't just call it something else already and get people where they need to get so they can get into the industry, but then you cut off a whole other caveat as to where its true benefit is. Because now if we're saying that there's no medical benefit, then we can't argue later on that, oh, well, this helped me with my depression, but we've already established that it can't do that because of XYZ, even if you feel like it might have that medicinal property. So it's like, ooh, I don't know. And you know what? And this is why I knew what I was doing. This is why I knew I wanted you guys, because here's the thing. When I came into this conversation, when I came on, I was like, okay, come on, just deschedule the shit already. Like, why are we still fighting? People can drink. People can smoke stinky cigarettes. Why are we still fighting? Right? But after you poignantly put it, in that way, it's like, you don't go and join a new team to fight on because your team, is a little winded, or your team has a little more work to do to get, to the finish line. You all in that time, you re-strategize, you figure out, you come back to the table, you come back together, you separate, y'all go and you do your R&D, and then you come back, and you keep that envelope moving. And like you said, from 1970 to now, even though it feels like we've only moved an inch, slow motion is better than no motion. And if it gets us the ultimate outcome, then it's like, Dad, can I really push to want it to be descheduled, knowing that it takes it automatically, by being descheduled, changes how you can, I don't want to say think about it, because it's still that, but how it's marketed, how it's referenced, with the different channels. So like, I don't, that very amazing point, Eric. Like,
so here comes the other rub. Now, could Congress write a statutory law? Be a little bit of a Frankenstein law, but could they write a statutory law to protect both the medical dynamic and allow it to be completely paroled and free?
Yes. I don't see why not.
They could. So that could be your pathway for still having best of both worlds. But it would have to be a congressional act. It's not going to be something that could be done by the executive branch. So for the folks out here who are criticizing our current president, who doesn't want to be a dictator, who's actually just trying to adjudicate the laws as they exist, his administration, which is more than just him, is following the laws as they exist. If you want the next step, going back to a point Antoine made earlier, y'all who want to and support cannabis in Alabama, you need to vote for more pro-cannabis congressional members. You need to vote out Tommy Tuberville. Mississippi, y'all need to vote out Cindy Hyde-Smith and put Mike Espy back in that seat, because Mike Espy was pro-cannabis. And when y'all passed cannabis legalization on the medical side at 72%, 26% of y'all voted for Cindy Hyde Smith, who opposed medical cannabis in the state of Mississippi. And my grandma Foster used to always say, don't cut your nose off to spite your face. You might not be able to breathe after that. Come on, people.
Well, who the hell do we need to kick out in North Carolina? Can you tell me that? Because they always doing the most. Like, who do we kick out here? Like, I would assume everyone, but who do we kick out here?
Well, y'all need to stay at the first step is the state level to make sure that the MAGA Republicans in the state legislature don't re-gerrymander the state at the congressional level to destroy the 7-7 balance. Y'all have equilibrium at the congressional level. At the state level, y'all are all the way messed up in terms of gerrymandering. But at the congressional level, it's okay. But it's the states like Alabama, Louisiana, places where you can elect more Black folks or more either liberal Republicans, real Republicans for the few that exist, or Democrats who are pro-cannabis, somebody who's pro-cannabis, you can elect into these congressional seats. Now, fortunately, surprisingly, the Supreme Court is sticking with the right thing in Alabama, so you should have a second congressional seat. Louisiana in the same vein, Georgia in the same vein, but guys, y'all have to stop voting for the folks that are anti this issue at a federal level, because from a federal lobbying level, what I need in terms of help, what Banks & Company needs in terms of help for our work for M4MM on these issues is we need more supportive elected members of the House and Senate. There's only so much we can do with the current body. Just being real.
I agree, and I second that, because like you said, man, Alabama, we have a huge amount of voting power that has not been tapped into, but we're currently dealing with, some attempting gerrymandering with our congressional district maps, and the Supreme Court doing what they can on that by appointing us a special master. But as well, we got to be able to get out here and get the information to the people. Because what I've been learning about a lot is, man, we have a lot of ignorance out here with a lot of folks just simply living like they don't know what's going on. So when a lot of these conversations start to come up, it's kind of it's brand new to them, and then they get into the whole that they vote don't count. I'm like, well, we got the situation right now. Have you been paying attention to that? And they're like, no. So I'm like, all right, cool, brother. I got to get you activated. Come on here. We got meetings here. You want to talk to me about so and so, we can go here. Just being finding a way to be able to get folks more activated and more knowledgeable, so we can have a more educated voter when it is time to go to these ballots. It's always certain amendments that's introduced here in Alabama, which a lot of folks don't even know. Just a couple of elections ago, folks didn't know they was voting for abortion, but they wasn't so in tune with everything that's going on. There's a lot of things that get kind of slipped through, and some folks end up missing, or some folks just don't show up at all.
Well, let me piggyback on that, and let me tell you something. One thing I do know, because a lot of people don't know, and this is why I wanted you on here, Eric, as far as just knowing that strong policy background. A lot of us really, outside of, if you haven't done like speech and debate or like policy and, anything like that, where you were a part of either Young Black Caucus, or if you were a part of, what was the other one, the Model UN, if you weren't a part of like things like that, where you were really learning about policy and if you don't remember Schoolhouse Rocks and they taught you about how to, a bill and how to get the Congress and the Constitution, all of that. Most people are really taught, especially on the Democratic side, I will say that, just hit the button and vote your party. Not realizing that you actually need to know that some Democrats are ass cheeks just like some Republicans are, and voting your whole party doesn't necessarily serve you the best purpose. It's about actually knowing about who these people are. But you know what it is? No one's figured out how to, outside of you, Eric, because you are,
smoking good.
Let me give you snacks, because you are good at making policy entertaining. You make policy where not only you going to learn something, but you're going to chuckle and have a way to connect it back to like real life and understanding, right? I think a lot of the times people are bored, right? Because it's like, they don't really know all the caveats and have an understanding of how Congress even works, or how, you know, just because you serve a particular party doesn't mean that each person is going to have those particular things. Knowing, kind of like when we went to the Hill and we are like, we attacked it strategically. We knew who we needed to see. We knew who was our people on our side. We knew how to kind of have those conversations and what we needed to get back as far as feedback. So we knew what to bring to you to have those further conversations to really start pulling these things together, you know, which is how, even though it still got knocked, you know, that's how we were able to get Senator Booker, you know, to even have and help to put safe banking back on, you know, even though it's still trash right now, but at least it's like we said, the time and the steps, you know. So that's a big thing, like, to really think about. Like the fact that people really, they haven't figured out how, and they did that on purpose. Notice how everything, and this is something to think about, kind of like what you were saying, Antoine. You were talking about how people have no clue and they're just out here walking aimlessly and really don't know. They just kind of going through life. I work, I come home, I have family. They have no idea about the bigger conglomerate that's going on around them and how it actually affects them overall long term. And notice how they found a way to make everything else entertaining to us, right? But somehow they've made this the plainest, most boring. Oh, you don't want to learn about this. You don't want to be a part of this policy. And that's how they get over. Because it's not enough of us that know the information that need to be in the rooms, having the conversations, knowing when the meetings are. Most people don't even know, like, when their state or Congress or even their local, you know, are meeting to have any of these conversations. So, you know, you definitely do a really great job at making it where people can be entertained but still learn a lot. And they haven't done that. And that's a lot of the reason why people don't know, because everything in our society is cloaked in entertainment. And as long as we're being entertained and they can do the little carrot dangle, all of the other bullshit that they're doing, we don't know about until it happens. It'll be like the Handmaid's Tale. One day you go to the bank, you got to ask, wait, I was always able to get my own money. Well, I got to ask him to get my money. Wait, now I got to throw away my clothes? We burning books? Like, and no one knows, because everybody else that was here was making all the stuff happen while y'all were just walking around doing the mundane.
Well, it's the same thing right now with what we're dealing with in terms of 2024 and the MAGA dictatorship Republican movement, or the MAGA fascist Republican movement. And there are a few real Republicans that are left, but that number is real small. Ultimately, and that's as Eric Foster's perspective, this is in for MM's perspective. But it's important for folks to understand this, because we're dealing with, and I tell this sometimes to our friends in the MJC and in other organizations that are allies and advocates. If you think anybody that's running for the MAGA Republican nomination for president, outside of Chris Christie or Will Hurd, is actually going to support continuing the constitutional republic and representative and participatory democracy form of government that we've had since the beginning, with all its fucked up flaws, excuse my profanity, then you are fooling yourself, and you're fooling yourself. You're lying to yourself. So in voting, it's not just the dynamic of, well, I voted in 2020 and I didn't get everything that I wanted. You know what? Look, when I met both my ex-wives, they didn't marry me the first day. Neither Jackie nor Katrina married me on day one. It took time for them to date me, to learn to figure out I was okay, to then marry me, to then decide they didn't want to be with me, to then decide to roll out of the relationship, and then walk through the divorce. That took time. It didn't happen overnight. It wasn't, we met on Monday, got married on Tuesday, got divorced on Wednesday. All you people that, not all you people, but the people that want the microwave mentality of this stuff just to happen quickly, no, that's not right.
I think it's about where people, it's like, it's your thought of time, right? Because remember the start of this conversation, I was like, dude, it was 1970. It's 2023. And you're like, look, I was here in 72 and we still, you see what I'm saying? So time is relative to people who understand it differently. And the fact that you're saying that it takes time, you have people like me who are learning, like, in especially in this conversation, which is why I wanted to have it, because what I consider time, you're like, that's like a bleep in the bucket. You know what I'm saying? So it definitely, it definitely takes a different connotation.
Same with what Antoine's dealing with down in Alabama. You know, Alabama is the occupied territory, unfortunately. Millions of voters who are trapped behind lines of undemocratic processes. Your cannabis laws, and guys in Alabama, if you all are listening, the cannabis laws that you have don't work. They're not set up to protect the patients. They have caregivers, but if you're a caregiver, you can't actually be a caregiver in terms of growing plants for the patients that are assigned to you, processing product. You have to go to a store to buy. Well, now, right now, if you have a medical marijuana card in Alabama, where are you going to get your marijuana from? Because you can only get it from a retail store. Are there any retail stores open? I mean, come on. Are there protections for workplace harassment? If you have a medical marijuana card, it's a bona fide relationship that's qualified to say you have a health ailment that qualifies you to take this as a part of your medical treatment. You have no workplace protections for that. You barely have driving and civil liberty protections for that in the law. Now, come on, guys, you need y'all to get in the game. And
I legit actually posted about how a cop got fired and he was reinstated, which I was like, that was one. I feel like that was either my last show where that was like a huge, like, wait, you got your job back, like that. It's, you know what? I will say this. I'm glad that, and this is why I wanted to have this conversation. Again, guys, if you all are not following Minorities for Medical Marijuana, you really need to make sure that you're following this amazing organization that we happen to belong to. We are really working hard to change not only things in the policy, but things within cultivation, things with, our colleges and our young people, making sure that everyone has access, making sure whether it's to work with it or to actually be able to partake in it in a way that's going to serve the people. So make sure that you're following us. Make sure that you're also following Eric on his social media platforms, and Antoine. Make sure that you check out
Native Black.
Why do I always want to say Native Son, Native Black Son? Because it's all there. I love it.
A lot of Richard Wright. That's what's going on.
Look, I be reading the Matrix. Okay?
Book, and that stuff has relevance to the day. Come on now.
Well, let me ask you guys.
We still know is living on Native Son right now in America right now. Just saying.
Let me ask you guys this, because I want to go ahead and, for one, respect your time, because I appreciate you guys. Like, this has just been a really good conversation, not only for whoever our guests were, and make sure that you guys share this out as well, but also for anyone who really doesn't, understand, all the things that are going on. This conversation was super big, and it was big for me too, because again, I came into here like, look, deschedule this shit. Okay. I'm tired of arguing with you people. I want to be able to go and make ice cream for everybody. I don't want to have to fight with you folks. I want to be able to teach people about the medical properties that you can get through your food if you're not one who wants to actually partake in the inhalation method from smoking. Like, let's talk about it. Let's get what you need. Let's teach you about dosing. But now, ending this conversation, I feel like, okay, so we can't run from the fight that we fought so hard to get to, right? Just because we want the easy outcome. And that's what I feel like, in a way, that's what we represent as far as M for MM. We all come together with our different, backgrounds and, difficulties with this licensing, hardships, like learning about the policies that are important, and kind of bring that all together. I want to give you guys, before I go ahead and start telling people about some events that are going on around the nation. Your final thoughts as far as, as a matter of fact, I'll leave you with this last question. What do you think outside of time and voting? Like, what can we do as a collective, as people, whether you're a part of M for MM, whether you're really just trying to figure out how to get in? What are the best things for us to do in order to really start to see this needle push?
I can go first. First thing the most important thing I would say is just get involved in the process. Do not allow everything to move on without your input or your thoughts about whatever it is that's going on. Get activated locally. Go to your city council meetings. Go to the committee meetings that the state hosts, just to be able to get a lot of this information firsthand, because the news don't do the best job at giving it out. Your job don't do the best job at giving it out. Your friends don't know anything, so they don't do the best job at giving it out. And a lot of individuals that's out here pushing it, they busy, you're not actually catching the meetings and catching them in those settings. So the biggest thing that I can say is just get activated. Make it your business that anything political going around in your current space, it needs to be funneled through you, and you have to be knowledgeable of what's going on around you. Because the more knowledgeable folks that we have, the more educated people we have, the more better educated voters we will have as we continue to go to these polls next year.
So my thoughts are a few things. First off, I'd like everybody to go to congress.gov, set up an account so that you can get alerts on bills that are being introduced, so that you can find out when committees are holding hearings, because all that stuff is online. You can watch it on YouTube. If you want entertainment, watch the House of Representatives. That is entertainment, since the MAGA folks is in control. Every day you wondering, okay, when is a Colin Allred or somebody like that just going to walk over to the other side and beat the dog shit out of somebody on the Republican side? It's going to happen. You know it's going to happen. You just count down. There's bets over, under, and parlay bets all over the country waiting. When's there going to be a fight? Because it is a hot mess. I say all that stuff to say that's part of getting involved. Same at your state legislature. All of this stuff is online. You can go back and watch it at your own interest. They have transcripts, so you can read it if you want to see it. You need to get involved. And on the reschedule question, rescheduling, getting it to a Schedule 5, getting cannabis to a Schedule 5, and having it basically live in two worlds, where there's the over-the-counter version that can be adult use, like your Robitussin you can buy right off the shelf, and your medical, which is where you need the prescription. Variation in the grade or potency, but that's the place where cannabis logically can end up and make sense to be able to support both the medical world and the adult use world. You're giving civil liberty rights, and you're also treating health ailments and continuing that framework. That's your two places to go when it comes to that. But y'all got to get involved. I thank you, Kit, for letting me come on. I'm always willing to come on to talk, share information. I'm here 2 nights a week. So anytime y'all want to check in and watch, let me know. Hopefully you've enjoyed the layout of information. I got a lot more to give, and I need y'all, like the Joker said in The Dark Knight, I need y'all people to get in the game. What's it going to take? Come on. Do I got to put y'all on boats? Do I got to shut down Gotham?
You going to come ship me up? Anything you need from me.
People to go after accountants? Come on now.
Look, let me tell you something. The way that he had us attacking imagine hitting all 3 buildings. It was absolutely phenomenal, guys. But I appreciate you guys. I didn't even know that you could sign up for an account like this, congress.gov. Again, I know what I'm doing when I bring people on my show. Like, I just know who to bring. I know what's going on, and I appreciate you guys so much. I'm gonna go ahead and close this out by showing and sharing these events. with everyone that's going on around the nation. Guys, again, make sure that you plug in, make sure that you are getting connected, and you can't make change if you're not a part of the change that's happening. So whether it's writing, whether it's making a phone call, whether it's just understanding and learning more, definitely, you have an organization you can reach out to. Please, we have free memberships. We love, love our people, and we love on our people. We definitely try to make sure that we are all taken care of. Oh, hello.
Well, you still up. You got this. There was the one that just popped up for health is wealth.
That's right.
Kit. So Kit's frozen, but the first one that popped up was a health is wealth. Didn't get sickle cell anemia, patient's perspective. That is going to be a good show to watch, and that's this Saturday. Definitely watch it before the government shuts down so that you can stay in good spirits until Sunday when it shuts down and learn some good information. Then there's a NECAN convention coming up. I'm not sure. Oh, NECAN of New York. I can't read wet because that's small, but it is for cannabis and hemp. Don't sleep on hemp, people. Hemp is a huge sector that we're working on to really open up opportunities for all of us in. St. Louis, Missouri Cannabis Convention is coming up. Hey, we at M4MM recommended, wrote, and it was adopted in the Adult Use Constitutional Amendment provisions for social equity and economic inclusion. But we need y'all to get in the game because the implementation has not been what it needs to be. We can write good law, but we need y'all to be a part of helping to push for implementation to be done right. Both my grandmas used to say, sometimes you got to just make people do right because they ain't going to do right on their own.
And clearly I ain't gonna do right because I'm talking to y'all and my computer was like, bitch, we need power. So but let me go ahead and button this up for you guys. I see that she's already put a couple of our events up. Nicole, can you?
Yeah, and I've told people about them.
Oh, because you're awesome. So I came back on time. So October 14th, I am doing a live cooking demo. We're going to talk about the secret behind every recipe. And we're also going to talk about how to use different mediums in cannabis. So I actually teach an infusions course, guys. For those of you who don't know, I actually teach you how to take your cannabis, how to properly decarb it, and then how to use it in different mediums that you can use in your everyday cooking and baking. I am actually going to be hosting a live demo course, a live demo class so that people can follow along. They can learn, they can ask questions. That is going to be October 14th, and that will actually take place at 7:20 in the evening. So guys, definitely stay tuned for that. I'll be posting more on it. Gentlemen, y'all have been above board. And and I'm sorry, I just noticed this. So in Detroit, we have our Midwest CannaCon that is going to be on Friday, October 6th through Saturday, October 7th. These conferences are super dynamic, guys. Getting where you fit in. You do not have to be in the cannabis industry per se to enjoy these. Not only that, you may actually find out a lot of information that will encourage you to get involved, whether it's in policy, whether it's in cultivation or retail space. Gentlemen, you all have been an absolute joy. Eric, you know I love your life anyway. Broski, you already know. Like, I am excited. I'm literally getting ready. I'm about to add some power to my laptop, but I'm about to sign up because I never knew that you can sign up for a congress.gov account. And I'm sure that a lot of people don't know because, when they, if you want to hide the good information, you put it in a book or you put it in some kind of publication, right? And people don't know that these things are out there and available to us in a way that can serve us. So y'all have absolutely served our audience this evening. The tea was hot. It was policy filled. And now I have a very different approach and, thought behind the whole rescheduling versus descheduling. Mm-hmm. So I think you do too, Antoine, correct?
Yeah,
Because
I definitely
here.
do now because I was on the side. We need to go and get this joint descheduled, but
Look, I had my pitchfork ready.
Eric is good. Eric is
Schedule.
good. I
And
love
Eric.
speaking to Eric.
I told you that's why I knew he was going to twirl my hair. Eric came slide to the left, and then he come in here with all this juju going on. Look, gentlemen, y'all have been top tier as usual. I wouldn't expect anything less, and I appreciate you guys. Guys, we're going to wrap up our show for this evening. We are super excited about the things that are going on in cannabis and how we can make them grow. Again, if you are not already connected to either one of us or M for MM, you need to make sure that you do that. M4MMUnited.org. Also, I am your host, Kit Grimes, and it is also co-sponsored by theedibleincredible.com. Again, we make great eats and treats and teach you all about how to use cannabis in a different way. So, guys, thank you so much. I hope you all enjoyed this conversation. I'm gonna definitely have to bring y'all back. Like, we're gonna have to run this back.
Until next time.
All right, look forward to it.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, audience, and we'll see you next month. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye.